All right, good morning. I'm Mr. Mack. We got Miss Smith and we have our guest, Miss Zapata, here with us today. So, Miss Zapata, what exactly is your job title and kind of like a description of what you do?
Yeah, so good morning, everybody. My name is Vanessa Zapata. I'm a licensed social worker in the state of Illinois, and my current role is a behavioral health social worker at the Loyola School-Based Health Clinic, which is located inside of Proviso East High School.
Nice. And then kind of give us like a description of kind of what you do. Like, I guess like what would be on like the job requirements when you're like looking to apply?
Yeah, so my job, I think I wear many different hats, but mainly what I'm focused on, what my position description is to be able to provide one-on-one individual therapy to the students of District 209. So what I do is I either meet with students at Proviso West, PMSA, Proviso East, and provide one-on-one direct individual talk therapy. So we would meet on a weekly basis to talk about a variety of different issues. So whether you're going through, a difficult time in your family, whether you experienced, a sudden loss, whether you're maybe going through a depression or anxiety, any of those, you know, things that I mentioned are things that I deal with my students on a daily basis. So just really helping them learn how to cope with what they're going through, help them identify, ways to manage those, depression and anxiety symptoms, learn how to process those difficult emotions. So that's what I kind of do on a day-to-day basis, but I also work a lot within the community. So working with District 89 for the past couple of years. I've also done group work with Irving Middle School, doing weekly groups for, boys and girls, grades 6 through 8, on also a variety of different issues. So really working with the behavioral team over there to identify, what should we focus on with our students, what kind of things are they going through? Do they need to learn how to, manage their stress better? Are they, maybe, needing to learn how to cope with their anger? Did they go through sudden loss? So just really being able to be supportive and identify the needs that students in the district are going through.
So, so you talked about obviously like Irving and I'm just gonna assume that we're your favorite, but either way, we had Luna on, and so I actually want to ask you this. So, what would be the difference of like a school social worker versus like not as I don't want to say regular, but like a behavioral social worker?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences. So the difference between me and Luna is that Miss Luna is specifically a school social worker. So she is focused on making sure that the student is successful in a school setting, right? So do they have the appropriate supports? Do they need special accommodations? Do they learn in a different type of setting? Do they need a smaller classroom setting? Do they need one-on-one direction? Whereas I kind of just work on the social emotional piece that a student may, be going through. So learning how to kind of cope with their emotions so that they can be successful in school. So we kind of work hand in hand, but Miss Luna really focuses more on making sure that, she's advocating for the students and that they're able to learn successfully.
So, what is your educational background? Like, what internships or volunteer opportunities have you done to get you to where you are now? And sorry, I'm using one of my self-care strategies and taking a walk in the fresh air.
Of course, I totally support that. As far as my education background, I didn't start off as a social worker. I got a bachelor's degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree from a university, Western Illinois University to be specific, in healthcare administration. So I really didn't see myself being a social worker. Going into college, I knew I wanted to work in the healthcare field. I didn't really know, in what way. Thought I wanted to be a nurse. Didn't work out for me. So I ended up getting sort of like an administrative business degree in a healthcare setting. So kind of learning how to run hospitals. I did an internship for Central DuPage Hospital for like their insurance and billing cycle department. Didn't really like it. And then I realized, okay, I want to go back to grad school and pursue a master's in social work. So I went to Loyola University in Chicago. I did a 2-year master's of social work program. And through there, I was able to get some internship experience in different social work settings. So let me think. My first internship was at Central DuPage Hospital as well, but in their outpatient therapy program. So I was working with adults who, really needed to take some time to kind of just focus on themselves, learn how to kind of, manage their depression, so that they can, function and return back to work. Through there, I did like group education. So psychoeducation is what we call it. Just helping them identify different ways to cope, talk about, problem solving skills, talking about depression, and just really being in a therapeutic setting. My second internship was actually here at the Loyola School-Based Health Center where I work now. So that is where I was able to kind of get the best of both worlds, right? Learning how to do therapy and also being in a school setting. So I think this was a really well-rounded experience for me because I was able to see, what kind of work that we were doing in the community of Maywood, kind of the struggles that the students, in this area are going through, and then just best ways to serve the community. So that's that as far as schooling goes.
Nice.
How long did all of that take?
So my master's of social work took 2 years. I applied in 2016 and I wasn't done until 2018. Only reason being is that I wasn't a traditional social work major. So if I had gone and got my bachelor's degree in social work, I probably would only have to be in the program for 1 year. So to get my master's. But since I didn't graduate with a social work bachelor's degree, I had to do the full 2 years. So it took a total 4 years for my bachelor's and then 2 years for my master's. So a total of 6 years.
Not bad. So what made you pick this career? Like, was this something you've always wanted to do? Was it, what did you want to do growing up, and what kind of led you to picking this career?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, that's a question that I started to think about really young, maybe when I was in middle school, like, hey, what do I want to do when I grow up? I always knew that I wanted to be in a career where I was helping people. I just didn't know in what way. So naturally, nursing kind of came to mind because at that time, all of my friends were like, oh, I want to go to school for nursing. And I thought it would really be, an interesting hands-on career to get into and to also be able to help people. Later realizing that it wasn't really, something that would be a good fit for me, just because I can't really see myself getting hands-on and doing all that, nitty-gritty blood work and icky stuff. But I knew that I wanted to be able to help my, people in other ways. So I love to get to know people. I love to talk to people. I love to give advice. My friends always told me like, oh, you're such a good listener and you give great advice. So I was naturally always that type of person. So naturally, I picked a career that kind of encompasses the qualities that I have in myself. So starting college, I didn't really know what social work was, but later on, and through my college years, I learned to realize, social workers can do a lot of different things. They can work in a lot of different settings. When you're a social worker, you consider like a public servant, right? So you're helping the public in any way that they need. So you can work in a hospital, you can work in a homeless shelter, you can work in a school, you can work in a nursing home, you can work, for the government. You can definitely do a lot of different things. There's a need for a social worker, I think, in every type of public setting.
Quick question. So, because now that I think about it, when you were talking about some of your roles and responsibilities, because it reminds me a lot. I see 2 therapists a week, and it reminds me a lot of them. So, what is exactly the difference between a social worker and a therapist?
Yeah, so a social worker, I think, is more so focused on being able to identify those obstacles and barriers that people go through. So social workers are focusing on the person as a whole, like, do you need stable housing? Do you need assistance for, um, you know, uh, food assistance? Do you need some sort of, like, help with filling out like a disability application? Learning how to, navigate the public sector and get those services that you're entitled to, I think, is what a social worker does. A therapist more so focuses on the social emotional well-being of a individual, working through those childhood traumas, that family history, learning how to be able to, heal from difficult experiences, I would say, is what a therapist more so focuses on, the mental health and well-being of a person, whereas social work kind of encompasses all of the person.
That makes sense.
So, so you were mentioning that you kind of picked this career because it kind of aligned with some of your like character traits pretty much. What would you say are some character traits or just, I guess personality traits that would be good for, to be a social worker?
Yeah, I think naturally you have to want to um, be a people person, because you are interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. So if you're more introverted and you like doing independent work, this role might not be for you, because you are going to have to work with a variety of different populations, whether it be babies, young children, teens, young adults, elderly. The social work role is meant to be able to help people, so you have to definitely be a people person, I would say. You have to have some sort of empathy, right? So some sort of willingness to understand and put yourself in the other person's position, just so that you can really help them to the best of their ability. I would say you need to be able to be patient, and because you're not always going to have people who will work in the same ways you do. You kind of have to meet them where they're at and help them develop those skills so that they can be successful. Understanding, so empathetic, understanding, patient, and I would say, what's another good quality?
I was thinking resourceful or flexible.
Yes, resourceful and flexible for sure. Kind of just, working with whatever comes at you, trying to be resourceful and working with what you have, and trying to be kind of working within a network so that you can be able to find those partnerships and people that can help your client.
So, are you gonna go, Miss Smith?
Yeah, I was gonna ask something. I actually this just came to mind and I forgot we should have asked this for everyone else. So, for most jobs, especially public service, like you get some type of educational benefit. I know if you're like in public service, I think you, after like 10 years, you get your loans forgiven. So what educational benefits does your job provide you?
So my job provides me continuing education. So if I ever wanted to get another degree, because I work for a university, I can continue my education through Loyola, which is really nice. And so say if I wanted to get like my master's in, I don't know, public administration or any other type of schooling, I can definitely get that through Loyola for free, which is really nice. And also, like you mentioned, so since I work in the public sector, after 10 years, if I make, my loan payments consecutively, the rest will be forgiven, which is pretty nice. I think that's a really good benefit that this type of work offers.
So, one thing I did want to ask, so Ms. Smith always actually kind of brings up like self-care and stuff, and this kind of makes me think of this. So obviously
Get in
with
some sunshine.
so with us, we all have those kids that it's like almost like we can't get through to them, right? Like we can't we can't really help them turn that corner or whatever. So it's almost like, to us, and I don't want to necessarily speak for you guys, but it's almost like you kind of feel like a failure in some sense, right? How do you deal with that? Like this, almost like this, that struggle to kind of be successful with one of your clients. Like how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that took, some time to kind of develop that understanding that I am not always going to be everybody's, perfect social worker. So maybe if I'm not able to get through to them, maybe somebody and hopefully somebody else will, um, you know, down the road. You also kind of just have to understand, like, where is that student at this time? Are they ready to want to, put the work in to change? I think um, it all kind of comes from, individual willpower. And I know that sometimes it's harder because we're dealing with students and, you know, they're not adults and they can't necessarily change their situations all the time. But I think, being understanding that, you're not always going to be able to change everybody's situation. But if you do the best that you can and you try and you put that effort in, I think, you can kind of walk away knowing like, okay, I did the best that I can. I didn't, give up on this person. And hopefully they'll, come around sooner or later.
So, what advice would you give students who are trying to figure out their career journey? Whether it's now in middle school, some of our students who have recently graduated that's going to high school, what is some advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I would say definitely be curious. Start thinking about, different careers, talk to different people, talk to the people that, the adults and mentors in your life. We have, in the school setting, teachers, social workers, psychologists, speech therapists, gym teachers. There's so many people that you can just kind of pick their brain and ask, like, hey, how did you get into this career? Or what type of schooling did you need? I think definitely, even if you're at the doctor's office, asking them, being curious. I think that's what, I didn't do young enough is ask questions or be curious about, what type of careers were out there. I know it's a really tough um, question to answer. And, when people ask you, what do you want to do when you're older? How are you supposed to know what you want to do when you're older if you don't know what kind of careers are out there? So I think definitely trying don't be afraid to ask those questions. Don't be afraid to be curious. Research things on the internet, on YouTube, anywhere that you can. I think start thinking about that stuff early rather than later.
So the obviously, the pandemic has affected a lot of people. And obviously specifically us, as education workers. And we've talked about this before.
Mhm.
But how has the pandemic affected your job?
Well, I think it's definitely been a challenging past year and a half while working in a school setting and just, having that taken away from us has been really challenging. It's been really hard to connect with our students this past school year because everything was remote. So you weren't able to see your kids face to face and kind of get a good idea of what they're going through. A lot of students maybe had other responsibilities to take care of during that time, had their siblings to take care of, maybe had to work during the pandemic. So it was really challenging, I would say, to keep that relationship going and that support going, even though we were, constantly telling our students, like, we're available, you can, just message us, we can set up an appointment. Still, it wasn't the same. So I'm very thankful that school will be returning, so that we were able to kind of, identify those needs of those students and everything that they've been lacking this past school year.
So what does a typical day look like for, and I obviously I'm pretty sure it's like ours and there is not really a typical normal day, but I guess if you were to average it out, what would a typical day look like for you from like start to finish? So you wake up in the morning, I don't
Mhm.
know, like if you're a coffee drinker or anything like that, like what does your day look like?
Yeah, definitely. So I, get to here at work at 8 a.m. the school day doesn't start till like 8:55. So I have like a good, 45 to 50 minutes to kind of situate myself for the day, get my coffee, read my emails, and kind of, sketch out an outline of what I want my day to look like. It typically doesn't go that way, but kind of sketch out, who do I need to follow up with? What appointments do I need to, do today? Who am I going to meet with today? And then so I'll kind of just outline it that way. I typically will meet with students starting from 9 till like 2 p.m. So I leave myself the last 2 hours of my day for documentation because I have to document every time I meet with a student kind of what we talked about, what interventions I provided, and kind of like a treatment plan on what we're going to continue to work on in the next upcoming appointments. So there might be a crisis that pops up here and there where I kind of have to immediately put off everything that I wanted to do and focus on whatever's going on at the moment. But typically that's what my day looks like.
So I just thought of this random question. So okay, when you guys are in schooling, do you guys take any courses or is there any curriculum on knowing how to stay calm in a crisis? Because like I've seen like you and Luna, and like when things are happening, typically you guys are very, very calm. Like it doesn't typically like really knock you off your game. You know what I'm saying? So is that something that's just a personal thing for you guys? Or is there some type of training in grad school where you have to learn like certain techniques or something that helps with that?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think, when there is a crisis or a stressful situation, I personally just try to remain calm so that I can, attend to the crisis and just stay level-headed manner. But definitely there are times where I feel overwhelmed and, everything is kind of happening very fast and you need to attend to something immediately. So naturally that pressure is there, but I just try to do my best to remain calm. But as far as any training that I've done for crisis intervention, yeah, there is something that's called CPI. I think it's called Crisis Prevention Interventions, and it just kind of guides you through ways to talk to a person who is escalated, maybe experiencing a crisis or exhibiting, aggressive behaviors. I have taken a course like that before and kind of talks you through different techniques to kind of conversate with somebody who may be going through a crisis and ways to kind of remain safe for both you and for the person who is going through a crisis. So that's the only thing I can think of. But other than that, I think it's just a natural characteristic of mine just to try to remain calm in a stressful situation.
So what is your long-term career goals? What's after Loyola? What's going to be your end goal?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I'm still figuring that out myself, even me who has, who is in the career of social work, I still am questioning, where do I see myself? I think, like I said before, the social work career is such a has a broad range of different specialties that I can get into. I am working part-time at a hospital, a suburban hospital, doing behavioral health evaluations in the emergency room. And that's something that I feel like has been very helpful and has opened my eyes to different opportunities as far as social work goes. So possibly working in a hospital setting, maybe going back to school to get my type 73 license for school social work. Those are definitely some things that I want to get off my checklist maybe in the next couple of years.
That part-time job sounds super cool.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting.
So this is off topic, but do you guys realize that like as you get older, that like when you think about the future, like the range of time kind of extends? Like when we were like probably like 16 and 17, it's like, okay, what do I want to do in the next 2 years or the next year or something, right? But I feel like now, like we're older, it's like, okay, where do I want to be in the next 10 years? You know what I'm saying? Do you guys feel that way or no?
I feel like time seems to be a lot shorter. Like right now, I have been considering getting my license in social work, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, but that's 2 years. That might be 2 years too long that I don't have. Other things may come up, blah, blah, blah. So I definitely feel like my timeline seems a lot shorter versus longer.
Gotcha.
I think like for me, I've noticed that things take longer than you plan. So I think like when you said like, oh, thinking 5 or 10 years down the road, I think I've been more realistic. Like, you can't get everything done at once. You kind of have to take your time and take into account, your schedule, your current job. So not everything can happen right away. Some things do take some time to plan out.
Gotcha. All right, Ms. Smith, any last questions for Ms. Zapata?
Nope. It was great seeing you again, Ms. Zapata.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yes. Thank you for coming on. We definitely appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a great conversation. I think it was, this is a great video for all of those who are questioning, what career they want to get into or just want to be more open-minded of different careers that are out there. So thank you so much. It was great to be able to help.